Hello everyone. Today I have a deck to show you that I'm actually quite proud of. So proud in fact that instead of going straight for the replays, we are first going to look at the deck itself. And here we have it. Now at first glance, you can probably guess what we are doing. Okay, we have an Electro, we have a Nemo, we have a Cryo character. This might remind you of something where Ayaka would be there and where is Visual would be there, and then you might recognize the deck. But as a matter of fact, this deck has gone through some changes, some developments, and I can truly be proud of it because I've had some real fun with this deck, as you can see by how I've named it. But actually, okay, let's go first the basics. This deck started out looking like this. This was the original version of the deck that I made last patch. And I'm not gonna claim I'm the first one who made up this combo. Someone somewhere probably has done it before me. But when I created this deck, this combo, the action cards were different of course, but when I created this combo last patch, I had not seen anyone playing it, nor had I heard anything about anyone playing something that looked like this. And this deck already worked very well last patch. But if you know about the balance changes, Ianson's Burst only deals 2 damage now instead of 3, and Sidlali's skill also got nerfed to deal only 1 cryo damage. And because of that, when the newest patch came out, I switched Escoffier with Sidlali. This way we got more max HP, and of course with Escoffier's skill you get a summon, and summons are very good with Mizuki. As for the action cards, you can see some quite interesting stuff here, but to be fair, you can absolutely change anything you see here to fit whatever you like. Like, this is just what I've come to like with this deck. Some notes I can say: using Opera Epiclea is a very good choice, since Mizuki's talent card is a must in this deck. So, and since we are trying to play this round 1 every game, using Opera Epiclea to get a little extra dice is a good choice. Secondly, I'd say Golden Troops Reward, specifically the free version, is very good in this deck, since at the end of each round you've used the Mizuki skill, you are going to be ending your round on Mizuki, so it's very easy to get value from Golden Troops Reward. As for the other stuff like Liu Su, I personally prefer, or I'm going to say use Liu Su, but you can absolutely use Star Signs or Calx Art or whatever form of extra energy you feel is good and you like to play, because the biggest extra damage we have in this deck is Ianson's Burst. And because of that reason, we are also running double Right for Reward. You can see we have Right for Reward, we have Liu Su, we have Noblesse Oblige, all for the reason that we can 1. Easily burst Ianson, and well, the Noblesse Oblige is here for the fact that Mizuki's biggest damage comes from the burst, and when Ianson has the Right for Reward, the biggest damage comes from the burst. So suddenly, and of course the same applies to Escoffier, the biggest damage comes from the burst when you have the weapon equipped. So having that sudden burst for the bit of extra damage whenever you need it is, in my opinion, quite good to have. We are using Rhythm of the Great Dream because you can see we have the weapons, the Gamblers, Shadow of the Sand King, and of course the Noblesse Oblige. You could use Golden House, but of course that only discounts these 2. Or you could use the, where is it there, Machine Assembly line, but you do not always get the first stacks easily against certain matchups, so I preferred to use Great Rhythm of Dream. But like, if you feel like you don't wanna play Noblesse Oblige, just probably take another Changing Shifts. You don't wanna play 1000 Floating Dreams, just pick up another War Princess. You know, do whatever changes you feel like. But my recommendations are keep the talent cards, keep Golden Rope, keep Opera Epiclay, and keep Liu Shu. Those are my personal recommendations if you decide to try this deck out. But anyway, with all of that, let's get into the games where I actually explain how to play this deck. Now, here in this first match, my opponent isn't playing any sort of meta deck, so we have quite a good time to actually look at the game plan instead of wondering what sort of specific moves you are doing.
Is it time for our session?
Arcane, though I forgot to mention there when I looked at the action cards, we are of course using the Stove card to look for Mizuki's talent, but you can also use the newest Arcane card. I do not remember the name, but I'll throw a picture on the screen. Of course, that doesn't guarantee you Mizuki's talent card as well. Like, the Stove card is a better guarantee for the talent card specifically, and like I mentioned, we really want Mizuki's talent card, since that is our biggest extra damage for the early rounds. But you can use the second, or you can also use like Day of Resistance or Fresh Wind of Freedom. Really, once again, up to your taste. I like to use Stove card because Mizuki's talent card is of such importance in the first rounds for that extra damage. But yeah, anyway. Round 1, you want to start with Mizuki against most decks. There are exceptions to this rule, but Mizuki is always a good place to start when you are wanting to get her early swirls, which you can see I'm going for here. Of course, in this matchup, because my opponent started first and, you know, looking at their deck, they would either start with Gaming or Yansan. In this case, they started with Gaming, did a skill, so they had a fast action switch. All of this simply means I'm basically guaranteed a swirl round 1, which is why we of course go for the Mizuki skill without fear.
Let's get started.
And Liu Shu, for this specific region, you can see we get Mizuki swirl, we get a fast action, we have full energy on Yansan. This is why Liu Shu is good. Of course, the second reason why Liu Shu is good is when you now switch to Escoffier, you only need to do one skill to get the burst for healing. Round 2 starts. If you've done the Yansan swirl, you can now see we are in a situation where we are not going to immediately get a swirl. Of course, in this case, my opponent is playing such a deck that Gaming force switches them and we do get a swirl. But in situations where you wouldn't get a swirl, like in this case, I mean, I could have done a Mizuki swirl here on Yansan. The reason why I do not is because I need Yansan's burst, because we don't. If I had Mizuki's talent card, I would have gone for a Mizuki skill. Because I do not have, we go for the Yansan burst. Also, this way my opponent doesn't get any overload reactions to do damage on the Mizuki, and we get more value of the Shadow King artifact.
Quick as a flash.
Of course, because they go for a skill here, I simply do a normal attack to make sure that, once again, we actually get value from Mizuki. After all, Yansan does stay alive.
Utensils at the ready.
Why did I switch to Escoffier here? To refresh the Night Soul blessing points, and there was still the chance that they might have a well, they had that one dice, they could have switched to Kazuha for another skill that would have overloaded me off from Mizuki here. Simply playing it safe. But once again, Liu Shu being the very useful card because we already have that 1 energy for Escoffier. So you gotta see, even though my whole team has taken quite a lot of damage, all we need is Escoffier Burst to help out.
Quick as a flash.
There we have Providence help us take out their Jansan, and now they do not have Jansan's Burst. Very good for
Ready to
me.
spice things up.
Here we go for Escoffier's skill, and I could go for a Burst, but you're gonna see my dice isn't really good, so we'll see what is the best thing to do here. And well, I actually tuned a bunch of cards. Maybe tuning the Golden Droop wasn't the best move, but I wanted to keep the weapon for that if I needed that sudden burst damage from Mizuki, and I wanted to keep the talent card because they are going to be switching the characters a lot, so we are going to be guaranteed some AoE damage here at the end. But this is why I like Escoffier in this deck. We easily get value from the burst since we are going to be switching characters a lot, and a lot of our characters are going to take damage. And of course, Jansan's burst is the thing that gives us the extra damage. Of course, there's also the possibility of getting damage food cards from Escoffier's passive talent, the cooking mech there. But to put it simply, all of this together makes for a very great
You can tell
combo.
me anything.
Here, because there's a great possibility of big damage, I was hoping for a Mizuki talent card, but unfortunately my opponent had a fast action switch with Catherine. Stalling the game by switching to Jansan, we still have the 3 stacks from the talent card, so there's really no need to worry about anything. And here, for whatever reason, my opponent went for Gami instead of Kazuha, so it's already game over. Anyway, let's get into the next game. Now we are actually getting into like proper old or new meta decks. Well, they are good decks. Like these are actual like good decks. We are gonna be patient.
At the ready.
You're gonna see in this matchup, the way I start this game is not good. You're gonna see here, we start with Escoffier, we go for the skill, and you're gonna see my dice are also very, very bad. I don't play either Liusu or the
Is it time for our session?
Sealy, because my dice are so bad. We even play the Stove card even though I already have the talent card, because I need cards to tune. If you are against Kengi, Sara, any Nemo character, you want to get Mizuki's talent card and you want to swirl, because the only way you win this matchup is by dealing more damage faster than your opponent. Alright? Also, why did I play Liusu instead of the Sealy there? Because I get Mizuki's burst early, which gives me heals and does more damage than the skill. Well, they kind of do the same amount of damage, but bigger burst damage. And also, now that when I switch to Jansan, once again, I only need 1 skill to get full energy. But in this matchup, you want to get damage as fast as possible. Like in this case, this works very well for me because I get a double swirl. But all my opponent would have needed is to start before me. In which case, if my opponent had started first, I would have started with Jansan, done an Jansan skill to get a fast action switch, and used that to switch to Mizuki to get a swirl. The reason I went for the Escoffier in this case was because I started first, not my opponent. So getting, the Escoffier skill switch Mizuki skill guaranteed me the swirl, because I know my opponent is going to go for the double skill from Genki, because if they do not, their whole game plan is ruined. Also here, in the last match we started with Yansan, but here you see why starting with Escoffier or going for the Mizuki skill then switch to Escoffier is actually, this is the main, the bigger, the greater game plan, because this, well, in this match you got to see the double swirl, which is sometimes possible, but having a summon with Mizuki is the best case, because you guys saw there, now the whole opponent team has cryo application, and that makes it very easy for me to swirl again next round. Luckily we get Chang the 9th, so we have some extra cards coming our way in this match. And we of course go for the Mizuki burst because we want the heals. That deck relies on the fact that it does a bunch of damage with the summons, so actually heals are the way to go. Going for the damage food a little late, because honestly I was somewhat debating whether I want to end my round on Yansan or Escoffier. I did end up deciding that I will end my round on Yansan, but I could have very well played the damage food earlier, so that Mizuki's burst would have also dealt more damage to Sarah. Also the reason why I don't play the Autumn Frost for the heals that I said were so important was the fact that we already have Mizuki's burst. Of course in this case I actually draw my cards beforehand, but look at that, Farusan out of the game. They've already lost their biggest DPS. Now the only way they could do great damage is with Genki's burst, but they've already stolen, well, taken one energy from Genki to get the Farusan burst there, so this is actually looking very, very good for me. Mizuki's burst of course giving us more heals here. And we do take quite a lot of damage here. Yansan actually does get taken out. Once again, because we are guaranteed a swirl and I already have Mizuki's talent card, I pick Mizuki instead of Escoffier. And even if my opponent has... I haven't lost yet, and the Fresh Wind of Freedom Arcane card, that will not be enough to take out both of my characters, because Mizuki has 3 HP, so even a normal attack is not enough. Here, I mean, you can already guess I win the game. I do want to give a quick notice though. I have lost to a different person playing that same deck, but they have Heizo instead of Farusan. In that matchup, I screwed up the round 1 swirls. And I'd say that is the biggest, because that match was close. But not, I mean, my opponent did wreck me in the end. They did win. And I want to say, even though I'm showing a victory here, it really comes down to your luck in getting Mizuki's talent card and getting those early swirls. But I did lose like to another version of that same deck, where in that game I messed up my swirls with Escoffier and Mizuki round 1. Anyway, let's get into the next game. And here we are against a crab deck. Now I of course wanted to include this game because crab is usually very good against swirl decks, since you are only really reliant on one character tanking all the damage and your off-field characters taking minimal damage. Of course, when you do a swirl, most of the time the off-field characters are the ones who take less damage than the active character. Of course, there's exceptions depending on what sort of swirls you are doing. Of course, in my case, we are doing Superconduct swirls, so we are actually dealing great pierce damage to the whole team. Now, of course, my opponent is playing some weird version with Serene and Mamere, but even still, Grab is a difficult matchup because of course the talent card also allows my opponent to cleanse. The good thing here of course is the fact that my opponent gives me a easy swirl here at the beginning. I don't play much cards because they actually played the Tobias Kid wheel and you saw that it discarded some of my cards and I want to of course avoid that. Mizuki Escoffier combo once again proving to be very good, since you can see my opponent, the whole team has Cryo applied. This is why the Mizuki Escoffier, this combo is the better round 1 combo. The Jansan doesn't give you the guaranteed swirl round at the start of round 2, which of course we really want to get when we have Mizuki's talent cards.
Sweet dreams!
My opponent's going for basic crab plays, surprisingly using food, of course. My opponent isn't playing the most meta version of the crab deck, but I respect anyone who is playing their own version of decks, so we are of course not
I'm all warmed
making
up.
fun of them for that. We respect playing different versions of decks here.
Quick as a flash!
Jansan's skill with Liusu, once again the same combo, of course now the double Superconduct takes out Chiori, and that means it is less shields and less summon damage from my opponent. Some more healing macarons, of course, being quite annoying against swirls, and also the fight for the death arcane card, not to mention the crab talent card, so we have nothing to swirl. It is looking quite difficult currently. Also playing the little Tepetlisaurus card, quite interesting deck my opponent is playing, I do have to say so.
Let's move!
Of course, going for the Jansan burst to get that extra damage. Poking for some cards, and of course I end up getting Jansan's talent
Ready to
card.
spice things up.
Classic, as usual, we just tune it.
Off to the freezer!
We go for the Escoffier's skill, since there's really no point in swirling Mizuki, not to mention Mizuki would take quite a lot of damage from the summons and would probably be taken out at the start of the next round. Now with the Crab's talent card, my
Let's
opponent
get
is
started.
actually starting to get the shields stacked up here. We go for Jansan for the skill, of course, but my opponent goes for burst, it doesn't matter, we just increase our damage so that it does basically no damage to my active character. Of course, the real threat is the piercing
Ready to
damage
spice
to the
things up.
off-field characters here.
The
But
Pentagon
luckily we have
Excellence.
Escoffier's burst to heal right back up, and that is actually one of the reasons why I kind of like Escoffier more than Sidlali. Like I mentioned, Sidlali was the first character I used in this deck as the Cryo Applicator. You could get the same all characters with Cryo with Sidlali as well, since if you played it right, you could achieve the same outcome, but Escoffier's summon, I still think summon is better with Mizuki, and of course Sidlali does give us shields, but Escoffier's team-wide heals are in most matchups a better choice, since we have individual heals from Mizuki's burst and we have team-wide heals from Escoffier's burst. With Sidlali we only really had individual protection from, Sidlali's shield plus Mizuki's healing from the burst, so only individual character could be shielded and healed, but with Escoffier we get that team-wide heal, which I really like. My opponent, of course, running food engine with crab, very interesting, and that of course allows them to stay alive. Of course, the biggest problem here is that Siglali stays alive and they have a fast action switch, so at any point they might go for quite a scary Siglali skill for a bunch of damage to my characters now that all of them have a pyro application. Once again, I am hoping for a swirl here to get more value from Mizuki's talent card. They even get a Hydro Resonance, like they are not running out of heals in this matchup. Luckily, I can also take advantage of the Phlogiston given by the little Tablosaurus card earlier, so that Janssen's burst or the Knight's All Blessing state doesn't run out and we do not consume the burst stacks. Switching around as per usual with Janssen, simply so that we save the Knight's All Blessing state. Could have played the Chang the Knight early here, but we only have 10 cards left. I consider there aren't that many cards in there that we actually need. Like I'd say the Mystic Soup are the biggest advantage I currently have in this matchup. Or maybe not the biggest advantage, the biggest surprise factor, or the whatever you wanna call it I have. Once again, the Phlogiston isn't actually that bad for me, like I actually can use them, so no problem with getting some of those. Once again, we of course use them to make sure Janssen doesn't run out of the Knight's All Blessing state. Doing the skill early, now we threaten that they cannot switch to Siglali so easily, because we can just end our round and play a weapon. Of course, my opponent doesn't really know that, but we can save our dice with Varanara, and this matchup is a good example why running a Varanara is very, very good.
Quick as a flash.
When it comes to matchups like these, you can just save your dice. And of course, the more dice we have saved, the less their food engine gives them. The less of an advantage does the food engine give my opponent. We are going fancy words here. Mizuki Burst, of course, keeping Mizuki alive and healthy. Now only problem is that Escoffier only has 2 HP, so a Crab Burst will take her out at this current state. Of course, in matchup like this, it is Janssen, it is the #1 character to keep alive. In this specific scenario, I want to keep Escoffier or Mizuki also alive to take out Siglali.
Get to work. I'm all warmed up.
I could have gone for Mystic Soup, trying to look for extra damage instead of the weapon, but I decided that the weapon is a better choice, since now we have a big burst damage that refreshes itself where my opponent deals damage. Also, we got that 1 healing from Janssen's passive skill, so that Escoffier does not get taken out by a Crab Burst. We go for a skill here to, of course, deal as much damage we can. I was hoping for Providence there for Escoffier's skill, but unfortunately we did not get it, so we simply take the healing. Of course, getting Escoffier's skill out would be good, because in the long run it does give us quite a bit of value since it increases the damage of Jansan's skills. Now we are already at round 8, this is getting quite the long game, and my opponent just simply keeps staying alive, but now that there's no Sidlali on the field, it is looking very good for me. There's also the new arcane card, Virda's Support, that's the name I didn't remember, but you can absolutely use that arcane card instead of the
Utensils
stove
at the
card
ready.
With this deck. Of course, like I mentioned previously, it is not a guaranteed talent card, but it kind of gives you the same benefits. Going for a Mizuki skill because I want to get Mizuki's burst out again for the heals. Like so.
Let's go.
And now we can spend the rest of the game on Jansan and just
up.
spam the skill and the burst. Of course, Jansan already has 7 HP, so these things will actually cleanse the cryo from the grab, but considering its damage nonetheless, it doesn't really matter. Now you can see we've run out of cards. My opponent only has 2 cards left. Probably thanks to the harvest time that keeps going back to their deck. Here's once again why Rightful Reward is good. Here we have the burst damage. Haven't played the second Mystic Soup yet, keeping it for, you know, a possible another Adeptus or something showing up. Of course, we are also keeping Mizuki alive to tank 1 burst from the opponent when it will be necessary. Here I decided to go for it. We get Providence there. Of course, heals are not necessary. We have Mizuki's burst for that. The Matsuge Meteoros will give my opponent just about alive, of course, because we have 5 HP. The special snack will give heals instead of to deal the damage, which is a little unfortunate. But we once again have the burst that does 6 damage thanks to the damage increase. Of course, my opponent is looking for more food cards with the double harvest time, trying to keep the grab alive, but surprise to no one, grab is not the Yungasaurus. Food engine is not good with the grab, and we take the game with this next attack after the grab uses the last final burst. Let's get into the next game. Now that last game was quite long, but it did show quite well how this deck can handle even stall decks that do make it out in the long run, or make the game into a long one.
You can tell me anything.
In this matchup, my opponent is playing, that is an adventure deck. Pretty sure they simply use the Genuine Whale to keep their characters alive, of course using the Amber Summon plus Hydro Tulpa combo, with the Diona being the late game carry, freezing and keeping herself alive with the shields and the burst heals. We of course kind of have to play into their hand because we want to get the swirls. But luckily they spent so much dice playing the Feldragon's Monocle, we do not have to fear
Ready to spice things up.
a Tulpa skill or a Diona skill, and they don't even proc their Liben, which is quite surprising. My guess here is that they want to take most damage with Diona so that Genuine Whale activates on Diona. Once again, talent card being the number one thing you want to get, and you can see here Escoffier being good with the summon because we get this great everyone has a cryo effect, or everyone has a cryo aura scenario. Double Opera Epiclea. Also, I did make a mistake. I already had one Opera Epic Lay there at the round 1, but I forgot to play it. It was a simple little mistake. Of course, it doesn't really matter. So, I mean, it's just one more dice, but all we really would have done with that dice is save it with Baranara. Opponent not dealing damage to Mizuki with a Diona skill being really good for me. I actually end up going for the Mizuki burst here because I can use the arcane card to pull that first Mizuki heal, a special snack to heal Mizuki. Mizuki's burst special snack to heal herself. Yeah, that's... I can play that sort of move, and now the summons will not take out Mizuki here. Once again, I'm assuming my opponent goes to Diona so that the Genu Whale would activate on Diona. But you can see here, they have taken quite a lot of damage already, and we haven't even, you know, used Jansan once in this game, so this is looking very good. Also, the Tulpa doing damage to himself, or itself, whatever, itself, of great benefit to me, since now it's easier to take out with the swirls. Now the Opera Epic Lay are coming in for great use here, since thanks to our dice advantage, it is quite easy to start finishing this game off. Amber Burst, some feeble attempt to take out Mizuki, will not be enough. And we have the extra damage from the Verdant Gift from the previous round, and you can see my opponent is in great trouble here. Of course, they do heal up a little, do save themselves a little, but you can see here, all we need to do is end our round, and that's gonna be 2 characters down. Like so.
Darkness closing.
And here the summons, unfortunately, once again do just enough damage that the special snack does not deal damage to the opponent, but instead heals. But it doesn't really matter in this scenario. 1 HP Diona, the Genu Whale only has 3 stacks. There is no way of recovery. I mean, they might play Fight for the Death or something, but they've already spent their arcane card, so there is really nothing they can do. Also, that deck also plays Fell Dragon, but they didn't even get it to activate, and we even have the agile switch from Jansan's skills, so no matter what, this would have worked out for me.
Let's get started.
Of course, in this last round I had quite the bad dice, but it doesn't matter. And we finish the game off with Jansan Burst here.
On my mark.
Like so. Let's get into the next game. And here we go with the last game of today. Against a double Chiori and strongly summon combo. Of course with Tulpa, because Tulpa is the best character to use with summon decks these days. Now this matchup, same thing as with the grab, this matchup can be really hard if my opponent is able to keep one of their characters in this matchup. Of course it's going to be Zhongli, but if my opponent can keep one of their characters alive and healthy, because the single target damage is the biggest issue for this team. AoE damage is easy, getting quite decent single target damage is easy, but getting really high single target damage, that is difficult with this team. Because you need things like Jansan Burst, and even still the skill damage of our characters is rather low. Here you see we go for the Jansan Burst because we start first, and of course my opponent, they would either summon or they would switch characters to avoid the swirl. My idea was if they summon, we now get a swirl with Mizuki. Of course, unfortunately, we do not have Mizuki's talent card. But this way, because of the fast action or the agile switch, we get a swirl here round 1. And alternatively, if they had switch characters, I would have simply collected Yansan Burst and saved the rest of the dice with Varanara and probably have played Shadow King and Golden Loop's Reward, of course. So the idea here was very simple. Either a swirl, if they summon, or collect a burst with Yansan, because we need some sort of damage as soon as possible in a matchup like this. Because if we let this game go on, also we got lucky with the Shadow King giving the Mizuki talent for here. Session? Very, very good. Not really in need of Yansan's talent card. That is actually one of the cards you can most often tune in this deck. It is here simply for the fact that you can use Stove card to look for Mizuki's talent card. But double Golden Droop coming from my opponent, very, very scary. Opponent going for the first Geo Resonance, playing all of their cards in fact, and of course even going for a summon with Chiori. Now I of course don't want to use a Mizuki skill because Chiori's burst, which they possibly have the dice for, would take her out because there's the damage increase one, damage increase summon on the field. This is, by the way, also one of the reasons why Sidlali was the... well, Sidlali is in some cases the better choice other than Escoffier, because if I now had Sidlali here, using the skill would of course Superconduct, but also would activate the Sidlali's Night Soul extra damage thing. You know, when you get 2 Night Soul points, you deal 1 cryo damage, so I could use a skill and my opponent would Superconduct and then get a cryo aura. Of course with Escoffier we cannot do that, since using the skill will simply cleanse the Electro aura and give us the summon. We played the Rightful Reward here because I know it's better to just end my round early, and not to mention we easily get the stacks for it because of these summons. And we can save our dice with one of these. In retrospect, probably playing the Wave-Kissed Sands would have been better, since we are going to get another food here very easily with Escoffier's Burst, and of course because this satiates all of my characters, we cannot play the second food card if we play this one, and well, so on and so on. We cannot get full value of it that easily. But once again, it's not a big deal. Actually taking Cryo dice here because a possible Escoffier Burst would be really good now that all of my characters have taken quite a lot of damage. Of course, once again, Tulpa doing damage to self is very good for me. We do go for the burst and we get the extra damage one, very, very good in this matchup. Opponent of course goes for Chiori. I use the extra damage one and take her out. We play the poor princess since there's the possibility that they have the talent card like they do, and that takes out Yansan. We go for a swirl to take out Hydro Tulpa, and now there's only Shonen. This is the scary scenario. Yansan is our #1 single target damage dealer. Once again, for the reason that she can keep her own burst buff up infinite. As long as Yansan is alive, she can keep her own burst buff going, just spamming the skill, and like I showed in that grab match, using the Rightful Reward gives us that big burst damage. But in this scenario, we have Mizuki, we have Escoffier. We don't really have great extra damage here. Not to mention my opponent plays the Fell Dragon. Like, in this game I do have to say, like, my opponent's card luck has been excellent for them. Like, Macaronis, double Golden Rupes, talent card, goddamn Fell Dragon. Like, holy moly, this is scary. I of course have to end my round on Mizuki, since anyway the skill would have switched me back. Luckily she's able to tank all of the summon damage here. And even more luckily we get Mystic Soup, so there is actually a chance of a victory here. Because of course the normal attack from Escoffier only does 4 damage with the damage buff from Jansson's burst. And finally my opponent's luck seems to be running out. They did not have the dice for the 5 cost skill here. Because I mean they would have absolutely used it. I unfortunately do not get the extra damage we decide to be shooting instead. And we simply do a normal attack, hoping that there's some way to make a comeback here. They do have the dice for 3 cost skill, which of course doesn't give them any shields, allowing me to win the game.
The pinnacle of excellence.
And here at the end I would like to give a shout out to Ains. I actually, we played this game, like we back to back 2 games, the same matchup in the Arena of Champions, and in our first matchup I actually lost against Ains, so, and you can see even in this game it was, all they would have needed was good dice there at the last round to do the 5 cost skill, and I would have lost. But well played to them, and of course we won the second game as you saw here, so a really close one. Anyway, that's all for today.